The Little House. Hi everyone. Welcome to our video on the Little House story. Today, we will learn about a charming little house that goes through many changes over time, but remains a symbol of home and simplicity. Hello everyone. Today, we will practice listening and speaking skills with the Little House topic. The story tells about a small house that experiences change over time but holds on to its charm and memories. Now, let's begin our listening and speaking practice. Chapter 1. Meet the Little House. Once upon a time, there was a little house. This house was not big, it was small. It was a cute little house. The house was painted a light blue color. It had a red roof. The roof was pointy. The house had small, white windows. There were 4 windows in the front of the house. Each window had a white, wooden frame. The house also had a green door. The door was made of wood. The door had a small, round, metal handle. The little house was in a quiet place. It was not in a busy city. It was in the country. The country had many green fields and tall trees. The house was near a small hill. The hill was covered in green grass. The little house was also near a small river. The river flowed slowly. The water was clear. You could see small, gray stones at the bottom of the river. The house had a small path that led to the door. The path was made of small, flat stones. The path was a little bit bumpy. On both sides of the path there were green bushes. The bushes were small and leafy. There were also some small flowers growing near the path. The flowers were yellow and white. They looked very pretty. The house was all alone. It was not near any other houses. It was a lonely little house, but it was also very peaceful. The air around the house was fresh and clean. The sun shone brightly on the little house. The little house felt warm and safe. It was a good place to be. The little house was quiet, peaceful, and blue, with a red roof, for white windows and a green door. The grass was green and the sky was blue. Chapter 2. The Friendly Garden. Around the little house, there was a garden. The garden was not big, but it was very beautiful. There were many different things in the garden. There were flowers of many colors. There were red flowers, yellow flowers, blue flowers, and white flowers. The red flowers were roses. The yellow flowers were sunflowers. The blue flowers were small and delicate. They looked like tiny stars. The white flowers were daisies. The flowers grew tall and short. The garden was full of colorful flowers. There were also green plants in the garden. There were tall green plants and short green plants. Some plants had big leaves, and some plants had small leaves. There were bushes with long green leaves. The plants were all different shapes and sizes. They grew everywhere in the garden. There were many little insects in the garden. There were yellow and black bumblebees. The bumblebees flew from flower to flower. They made a buzzing sound. There were also red ladybugs. The ladybugs crawled slowly on the plants. The ladybugs were very small and round. There were also colorful butterflies. The butterflies flew around the garden with their big wings. They flapped their wings slowly. The butterflies were purple, orange, and yellow. There were also some green grasshoppers that bounced around. The garden was a happy place. The sun shone down on the garden. The birds sang songs in the small green trees near the garden. In the evening, there were fireflies that glowed. The garden was full of life. The garden was a colorful, happy, and lively place. Chapter 3. Animal Visitors. Many animals like to visit the little house and the garden. Every day, small brown squirrels came to the garden. The squirrels ran quickly up the trees. They looked for nuts to eat. They sat on their back legs and held the nuts in their front paws. The squirrels were very fast and very busy. Sometimes, a gray rabbit hopped into the garden. The rabbit had long ears and a short white tail. The rabbit liked to eat the green grass and the leaves in the garden. It hopped slowly around looking for something to eat. It had big black eyes. A small, orange fox sometimes came to the edge of the garden. The fox was very careful and quiet. It watched the squirrels and the rabbit. The fox had a long bushy tail and pointed ears. It walked very carefully around the garden. Birds also loved to visit the garden. Small, yellow birds sang songs in the trees. They flew from branch to branch. They pecked at the ground looking for worms. Big black crows came to visit too. The birds flew in the sky above the garden. Sometimes, a small black cat came to the garden. The cat looked friendly and liked to play in the grass. It chased the butterflies. It watched the birds on the trees. The cat was soft and it had green eyes. The cat often napped in the sun in the garden. All the animals came to the house and garden. It was a busy place with squirrels, rabbits, foxes, birds, and cats. Everyone wanted to visit. Chapter 4. The Changing Seasons. The little house and the garden changed with the seasons. There were 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Spring was a time of new life. The weather became warmer. The sun shone more brightly. The snow melted. The green grass grew taller. New flowers started to grow in the garden. The birds came back. The trees started to grow new leaves. Little baby rabbits were born. Spring was a time of new flowers, green grass, and baby animals. The air was fresh and things became lively. Summer was a hot season. The sun was very warm. The sky was usually a beautiful blue. The garden was full of flowers. The bees were busy flying from flower to flower. The butterflies flapped their wings. The squirrels played in the garden. The animals were all very active and happy. There were long, hot days. Summer was a time of sun, warmth, and lots of activity. Fall was a time of change. The leaves on the trees turned yellow, orange, and red. The leaves fell from the trees and covered the ground. The weather became cooler. The days became shorter. The animals started to get ready for the winter. The squirrels collected nuts. Some birds flew away to warmer places. Fall was a time of colorful leaves, cooler weather, and animals getting ready for winter. Winter was a cold season. Sometimes it snowed. The ground was covered in white snow. The trees had no leaves. The garden was quiet. The animals stayed in their homes. It was a time for resting. The little house looked cozy with smoke from the chimney. Winter was cold and quiet. The little house and garden experienced all 4 seasons with their many different changes. Each season brought a different feeling and a different look to the garden. Chapter 5. A Happy Family. One day, a family moved into the little blue house. There was a mother, a father, a little girl, and a little boy. The mother had long brown hair. The father had short black hair. The little girl had blonde pigtails. The little boy had short, curly brown hair. They were very happy to move into the little blue house. The family brought their furniture into the house. There was a big brown table and 4 chairs. There was a soft, blue couch and a big, comfortable bed. They put their clothes in a big wardrobe. They put their toys in a big box. They put their books on a shelf. Every morning, the mother made breakfast for the family. The father read the newspaper. The children played with their toys. After breakfast, the children got ready for school. The mother helped them get dressed. The father drove them to school in their car. In the afternoon, the mother came home and worked in the garden. She planted new flowers and vegetables. The father came home from work and helped with dinner. The children came home from school and did their homework. In the evening, the family ate dinner together. They talked about their day. After dinner, they read books or played games. Then, it was time for bed. The mother and father tucked the children into bed and said good night. The family loved their little blue house. They were happy to be together. They loved the garden. They enjoyed being in the country with the quiet and peace. They all felt very comfortable in their new home. The family had a nice, happy, and peaceful life in the little blue house. Chapter 6. Fun in the Garden. The family loved to spend time in the garden. On sunny days, the children played games. They ran around the garden, laughing and shouting. They chased the butterflies. They looked for ladybugs. The little girl liked to pick flowers. She made a beautiful bouquet of colorful flowers. The little boy liked to dig in the dirt. He made mud pies. He looked for worms. Sometimes, the father helped him. He taught the boy about different plants and animals. The mother often read a book under the shade of a tree. Sometimes, the family had a picnic in the garden. They put a blanket on the soft grass. They ate sandwiches, fruit, and cookies. They drank juice. They watched the birds flying in the sky. They listened to the insects buzzing. In the summer, they put a small pool in the garden. The children splashed and played in the water. They laughed and giggled. They swam around in the little pool. The family loved spending time in the garden. They enjoyed the flowers, the trees, and the animals. They loved nature. The garden was very special to them. It was a place for fun, laughter, and happy times. They had a lot of fun each day in the garden. Chapter 7. Time moves on. Time passed. The little girl and the little boy grew older. The little girl was now a teenager. She loved to read books. She spent a lot of time in her room, writing stories. The little boy grew into a young man. He started to play sports. He went to college. He became a very good football player. The mother and father got older too. They had wrinkles on their faces. Their hair became gray. They slowed down a little bit, but they were still happy. They still loved their little blue house and garden. The little house also changed. The paint on the house faded. The red roof started to look old. The garden grew bigger and wilder. The flowers were very big and colorful. The bushes were tall and thick. The trees were also bigger and taller. One tree was very big. It was a large oak tree. The leaves on the trees fell each year just the same. The seasons changed regularly. The garden still was beautiful. It became a peaceful place to relax. The family had many good memories of the garden. The family had played in the garden. The family had eaten many meals in the garden. The house and garden showed the passing of time. Chapter 8. New Beginnings. One day, the family decided to move to a bigger house. They were sad to leave the little blue house, but they knew it was time for a change. They packed their things into boxes. They said goodbye to the garden and the animals. They drove away from the little house. The little blue house was empty again. It was quiet and still. The garden looked lonely without the family. Then, one day, a new family came to the little blue house. There was a young couple. They had a baby. The couple was happy to find a little house in the country. They cleaned up the house. They painted the walls. They fixed the roof. They planted new flowers in the garden. The baby crawled around on the grass. The birds sang their songs in the trees. The little house came back to life. The cycle of life continued. The seasons changed. The flowers grew, and the animals visited. The little house was beautiful once again. The new family made new memories in the garden and the house. It was the beginning of a new story for the house and for the new family. The little blue house was not lonely anymore. It had new owners and friends to make. The house was happy to have another family again. New begins were in the air at the little house.